Okay, folks, if you're ready, buckle up, let's begin. Bullies are rarely a one-dimensional character like Biff. They come in all shapes and sizes and often many disguises, and today we're going to hear about many of them. We've all experienced bullying firsthand, whether as a victim or as a witness, or maybe even as a perpetrator. But does the evidence tell us what's really going on? First up, I'm delighted to invite Marie Hemingway from the Speak Out Revolution to set the scene for today. Marie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Alex, and thank you, Joanna, for the invite. I'm hoping that Scott can help by sharing my slides. Fantastic. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Scott. Next slide, please. So thank you very much to Be The Ripple for giving Speak Out Revolution and myself a platform to share with you our work. So I don't think that I know a lot of people on this call. So by way of introduction to myself, hi everyone, my name is Marie Hemingway. Just to tell you a little bit about my background, I'm a physicist by training. So I spent half my career in the defense sector as a computational modeler and experimentalist. So I'm really interested in and curious about how the world works and why. I've also spent some time working in strategic investment decision-making, helping organizations, predominantly in the utility sector, think about how they optimally invest across their asset base, for which we know that people are a large component of what delivers value to organizations. And one of the things that I've seen throughout my career is a lack of women working in the defense and infrastructure sector, which I've spent the majority of my time. And this was a real concern to me. So I have been involved in D&I efforts throughout my career and now sit on the board for the Women's Infrastructure Network. So anyone working in infrastructure, please do check out the Women's Infrastructure Network. And then most recently, I've worked for Jacobs, an engineering organization, really focused on the people side of business transformation. So my background is a mix of scientific research, helping businesses think about how they invest with a large tech component to that, and also working with people around how we transform business through people. And all of those things have led to me starting and founding Speak Out Revolution, which is what I'd like to talk to you about today. So Speak Out Revolution is a not-for-profit founded in 2020 with a mission to cancel the culture of silence on harassment and bullying in our workplaces. So this really was born out of challenges that I was seeing my connections and friends silently suffering through that weren't being addressed by any solution that I could see out there in any of the sectors that I worked in. So we know that there are challenges that exist in society, and they naturally show up in our workplaces. And we think the real problem is that there is just a lack of transparency around this. And if you can't understand what the problem looks like, then you can't hope to solve it. And so at Speak Out Revolution, what we have done is launched a global anonymous survey, the Speak Out survey, which allows anybody in the world to document their experience of harassment and bullying, specifically in the workplace, and to bear witness to their route to resolution. So whether or not they reported their complaint and then how that complaint was handled and resolved. And what we're currently working on is designing a dashboard. So we want to collate the experiences of people who have had lived experiences of harassment and bullying and present them in an open source format on our website that anybody can come and look at. So they can either validate their own experience of harassment and bullying, they can educate themselves on what harassment and bullying looks like to be an ally to others, and any other organization that is working to solve this problem can look at the raw data to optimally target their interventions or strategy to try and solve this problem. So what I would like to do on the next slide is talk to you about the high-level insights that we're seeing from the Speak Out survey itself and try and increase the transparency of the challenges that people who are targets of harassment and bullying face in the workplace. So I'm going to move left to right. So on the left-hand side, I'm I'm specifically going to share with you insights from what we call the Speak Out Insights report. So this is currently an internal report to Speak Out Revolution, but we're working to make this available to institutes and to cut the data by sector, or to specific organizations where they want to understand what this looks like within their own company. So what I want to talk through is the most prevalent forms of harassment and bullying that we're seeing through the Speak Out survey is gaslighting, microaggressions, and discounting, and at the same time, people taking credit for other people's work while discounting their efforts in the workplace. And I think one of the key things that I want to get across here is that often these behaviors can be incredibly subtle over a period of time. And actually, people that we talk to will say that they didn't recognize that they were being harassed and bullied until they started to see the mental and physical impacts of the behaviors on them. And so one thing that we want to do is really shine a light on what the most prevalent forms of harassment and bullying look like, so people can be aware, can educate themselves, and can start conversations around what this might look like within their own workplaces. So what I want to talk you through now is what a person who is a target of harassment and bullying, what their route to resolution looks like. So just to start off with, what we're seeing is that 1 in 4 people will not report their harassment and bullying to their organization. So 25% of the problem we can't see at all. And only around 30% of people will go on to formally report. So I think for me as a scientist, I would say, 70% of the problem organizations do not see or understand. And I think that is a big opportunity for understanding and solving the problem. So let's walk through a typical journey for someone that experiences harassment and bullying. So what we see is that the majority of people will informally report. So they'll tell someone within their organization that potentially is in a position to help them, but they're not entering into any formal process, such as a grievance process. And what we see that the top 3 consequences of informal reporting are no action is taken against the harasser or bully. The second consequence is they see a negative detriment to their mental health from the reporting process itself. And 1 in 2 people will have their complaint dismissed, diminished, or just ignored. So at the informal reporting stage, where the majority of people will seek help and support, what we see is that they do not achieve outcomes that you would hope when they are looking for support within their organization. And so they now are experiencing harassment and bullying, they see detriment to their mental health, and they haven't had their problem solved, which means they have to escalate to a more formal process, which is where organizations will see this. So what we're seeing from people who formally report their harassment and bullying is that it's 3 times more likely that their situation becomes worse than becomes better. So this path to resolution not only impacts people's mental health, doesn't solve the harassment and bullying itself, but actually results in a target of this behavior situation becoming worse. Shows that the route to resolution for someone that is a target of this behavior is particularly perilous. And what we're seeing from our reports is that only 5% of people that share their experience with us will say that they saw a full resolution to their problem. And, from a background in consulting, I don't think you have to be a management consultant to draw the conclusion that actually when you only see 5% of people seeing a full resolution from the legislation and process and structures in place, there's clearly opportunity for improvement here. And one thing that I want to, I can see a comment around the tip of the iceberg. Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I want to touch on is what outcomes we see for people who experience harassment and bullying throughout the entire route to resolution. A very high proportion of people will want to leave their organization, actually around 60% of people who experience harassment and bullying report that they have left their organization as a direct consequence of the harassment and bullying that they've experienced. 4 out of 5 people will experience mental health detriment. And I think this is my biggest learning from this work. It's hard to articulate to people that haven't been through this or haven't read all of the reports that I have read, the vast impact on an individual's mental health. So what we see is that not only are people impacted at the time that they experience the harassment or bullying, even after they've left the organization, even after they don't have exposure to the harasser or bullier, often what we see is people will still require medication to manage the long-term effects of the trauma, or they'll have to seek speaking therapies or support. And this can be years after the experience itself. So there's a very long-lasting impact. And then what's important to me is the final one, around 4 out of 5 people will comment that they lose confidence in the area that I work. So my background is in STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths. We hear this a lot for women around experiencing imposter syndrome. And what we see is that this has a real cascade effect. It means that people don't want to go for promotion, don't want to go for that interview. And this can last years and years after the event. So that was a very quick overview of some of the insights that we're seeing from the Speak Out survey. I just want to leave this with, my personal driver behind this work is, with my background in the engineering sector, the engineering sector is going to be critical to solving all of our future challenges. And it's essential for us to leverage diversity of thought within the sector. This behavior and this continued problem means that we are driving out that diversity of thought. So I really look at this work as, what is the opportunity cost of inaction? Because actually the solutions that we're producing in the engineering sector are for all of society. And unless we're representing all of society within our workforce, we can't hope to create solutions that serve everyone. So thank you so much. I will stop talking. That was insightful and gave us a good starting point to hear about everyone's solutions to the problem.
Marie, fantastic. Thank you very much. Really cooking on gas. Brilliant opening for us. Thank you. One thing I would say before I hand over to our next speaker is do the Speak Out survey. Get the opportunity and do that, because I think the more data and evidence we can bring to this, the better.